Joining us now is Brad Polumbo, the Deputy Opinion Contributors Editor for the Washington Examiner. So, Brad, the big day is finally here. I guess we've been waiting for this for a couple months now. We kind of knew that it would get to this point, despite Nancy Pelosi withholding articles, stuff of that sort. What should me and our viewers be looking out for regarding this process moving forward?
Yeah, look, we've seen this coming for a long time. You know, like you played in your role just a few minutes ago, some Democrats have been promising to impeach Trump since day one. But what I think we need to keep an eye out for where this is going is there's really two possible paths. And one is where this kind of gets shut pretty quickly, right? A couple days of testimony, a vote, and et cetera. But there's another one where this drags out for weeks and weeks and where new evidence after new evidence is introduced. But either way, I mean, this issue isn't really going away because even if the actual Senate trial concludes in acquittal, which it probably will, pretty quickly, the actual issue that was raised here of President Trump's alleged misconduct is going to be wielded by Democrats throughout 2020, the 2020 campaign, as well as Republicans are going to argue that the Democrats tried to remove the president unfairly. They're going to keep arguing that for years to come.
And this whole process kind of does just come back on the Republicans, right? I mean, there is a sense that this is a very partisan thing in the sense that it's Republicans versus Democrats. But if Democrats want to, for example, bring in new evidence, such as the Lev Parnas information that just recently came out, or new witnesses, such as former National Security Advisor John Bolton, they're going to need Republican support in order to get that done. Is there any inference that maybe any of those Republican senators who are kind of towing the line sometimes, maybe like Susan Collins or Mitt Romney, Lisa Murkowski, the kind of usual suspects, is there any inference that they are willing to side with Democrats regarding those efforts?
Yeah, you know, yes and no. So in terms of the general framework of the trial that Mitch McConnell is proposing, you can expect almost every Republican to go along with that. Because Mitch McConnell's on pretty solid ground there, right? He's sticking to many of the same rules that were used during the impeachment trial for Democrat President Bill Clinton. However, I do think on some votes, such as a vote later on to admit additional witnesses or hear other things, you could see a few Republicans flip. And frankly, I think they'd be well within their rights to, right? Because even the president himself has said he's not opposed to bringing in new evidence from hearing from new people. Because if you really don't have anything to hide, I agree we shouldn't let this run on for weeks and weeks and become a disaster, right? But if you really, it looks bad to shut out evidence, right? If there's really nothing wrong here, I don't see how a few additional witnesses or admitting different additional evidence, while it could drag things on even farther, and trust me, we're all sick of paying attention to this every single day for the last 2.5 years, but I don't see the harm long term. So you could expect a few moderate Republicans to switch and support that.
And I think, too, it's important to keep an eye on how Republicans are really acting throughout this process. We know that Democrats are going to come out swinging, kind of keep making the claims against the president, say that there's abuse of power, abuse of Congress, things of that sort. But it's kind of interesting to see, too, how Republicans are responding. Are they going to let this kind of just go on, hopefully get over it kind of quickly, or are they going to come out a little bit more combative? I mean, to your point that you were just saying about witnesses, we've heard that behind closed doors, people like Ted Cruz are kind of pushing for kind of a tit-for-tat type witness type of development, meaning if they get to bring in John Bolton, then Republicans get to call in Hunter Biden, something like that. So it's kind of interesting to see how that's going to move coming forward. We've heard this morning Pat Cipollone, we've heard Jay Sekulow. They've kind of come out in a very combative, adversarial tone against the Democrat arguments. Do you think that's something that we should see throughout this entire process?
Oh, yeah. Don't expect Republicans to back down now. You can expect many of them to be putting on a show, right? To be coming out in full tribal, partisan fashion, bashing the Democrats, being combative with the witnesses. This has become a two-way street in terms of tribal partisan politics, in part because a lot of these Republicans, you know, they know that they're probably on TV being watched by the most people in a long time for a lot of them. And they also know that there's an audience of one, right? They know that President Trump is probably up in the Oval Office with Fox News or CNN on, watching them testify, or not testify, but interrogate witnesses and make statements. And so they're trying to impress the president, more importantly, the president's base ahead of re-election and in terms of building their own star. So I think, and I don't think it's necessarily the best thing that they're going to be doing this, because it does lend itself to more tribal, partisan stances, but it's going to make for good TV, I can tell you that.
And you could already see that kind of playing out to the benefit of people who helped out President Trump during the impeachment inquiry. I mean, just yesterday, some of the surrogates, if you will, were kind of added to the impeachment defense team, which for our viewers, it's separate from the legal defense team. I think that's an important point to make out. But those are the people that will be going out on TV, and you can see people like Representative Jim Jordan, people like Elise Stefanik, people who were very much so his supporters during that time. And I think it's worth noting, someone who's not on there is Matt Gaetz, another person who is very much so a Trump supporter, but he just recently had that no vote, a kind of outspoken no vote regarding the Iran situation. Now, I'm not saying that is what resulted in that, but I mean, the president does tend to reward people who show loyalty. So that'll be interesting to see moving forward. But regarding this process, too, before I let you go, is this going to end the way that we kind of thought it would end the entire time, with an acquittal in the Senate and then Democrats kind of continuing their allegations after that acquittal?
Yeah, no, this issue's not going here. It's not going away anytime soon, right? So even if the Senate does acquit the president, even if this whole trial gets wrapped up tomorrow, which it won't, but right, this isn't going anywhere. You can expect Democrats to make this the featuring, defining issue of their 2020 campaign against Trump, and you can expect Republicans to talk about what they perceive as an unfair process towards President Trump for decades to come, right? So I know that the American people, me certainly, are a little bit sick of the constant obsession over impeachment when other important stuff's going on, but this trial, unfortunately, doesn't really have any promise of resolving this once and for all in terms of the public debate.
Yeah, and speaking of that public debate, too, even if you go off the polls, it doesn't seem like the American people are too on board with this concept, at least not enough to get to 67 senators in the upper chamber. But I guess at this point, we only have to wait a couple days to find out. Brad Polumbo, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you.